The Global Longevity Summit is taking place between the 28th and 30th of October 2025 in Geneva, Switzerland. Now, it's called Mastering the Aging Clock, the Science of Longevity, and it's under a banner of Transform Your Practice and Patient Care. So the event is really an unprecedented opportunity for the world's most respected leaders in longevity science, healthcare, innovation, and anti-aging medicine to come together in Geneva. Now, Gordan Lauc is the professor at the University of Zagreb and a director of the National Center of Research Excellence in Personalized Healthcare. Now, Professor Lauc has co-authored over 300 research articles that are cited over 17,000 times in Google Scholar. And interestingly, he, in 2017, initiated the launch of the Human Glycan Project, which we're going to talk about today, to really understand the role of glycans in the normal physiology of disease. Additionally, in 2007, he founded Genos, a biotech company that is currently the global leader in high-throughput glycomics, which is obviously a very interesting subject, and we'll get into that too. So the research at Genos led to the development of GlycanAge, the biological test, which many of us know in the industry. And I'm delighted to say that Gordan joins us here today. So Gordan, how are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, excellent. And obviously, looking forward to really a very much a breakthrough conference in the space with all of the conferences that we have. This is going to be a very interesting one. So, Gordon, what are you going to be talking about at the conference?
So the focus of the conference are the aging clocks, because I think the aging clocks are becoming really useful in the clinical practice, because the key problem we all have in the field of medicine is that people are different, and you cannot use the same type of a drug, same type of approach to everybody. So we need some kind of tools to quantify what's going on. And there is more and more evidence that these different aging clocks can be actually used to personalize different type of lifestyle interventions, pharmacological interventions. And I think most of the conference will revolve around that.
Okay, and I guess to sort of wind back a little bit, because the glycans and their role in health, they're kind of relatively unknown to a lot of people. So could you maybe just explain a little bit for us about the role that they play in our physiology and obviously our propensity for diseases, and I guess how that ties in with your Human Glycan Project?
Yeah. So a couple of months ago, we actually published a paper which pretty convincingly demonstrated that it's actually the invention of glycosylation which enabled life to become multicellular. So the genes and the proteins, this is a bacteria thing. When we became multicellular organisms, glycosylation came into play. So the majority of proteins are modified by glycosylation. And this enables a single polypeptide to be converted in thousands of different structures which perform different functions. For example, if we talk about immunoglobulins, the major weapons of our immune system, they can be either pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory, depending on the glycans we attach to them. So glycans are one of the key regulatory mechanisms for all physiological processes which developed after we became multicellular. And the problem with glycans, they're chemically very complicated. Not many laboratories which can do high throughput glycomics, and this is why it is lagging a lot behind genomics and proteomics. But if we talk about personalized medicine, actually the first biomarker in personalized medicine were glycans, the ABO blood groups. ABO blood groups are chemically glycans, and they're used to distinguish people. And we know how it is important. If you give the wrong blood group in transfusion, you can kill somebody.
Yeah. So I guess, there's obviously a lot of work going on in the concept of biological age tests. We're moving towards a form of standardization, which is really encouraging. I mean, I guess that there are multi-players with different perspectives on all of this. What's your perspective on the point of reaching consensus? I guess, there's everything from obviously DNA methylation all the way through to grip strength, walk speed, and so forth. So you're part of that debate, Gordan. So how close do you think we are to achieving some level of commonality across different platforms?
So I think we will never have a single test, and we should not have a single test because aging and biology is very complicated. But what I think is essential that we raise the bar to diagnostic level, meaning we have to have clinical evidence and we have to have analytical methods which are sufficient to generate reliable data. And this is still a problem in the field. So just analytical performance is not being validated, it's not being controlled. And this is something which is ahead of us, but we are moving in that direction. So the moment we have tests which are at the diagnostic level, meaning we can reliably quantify what we are looking at, then there will be more and more clinics actually using them to personalize interventions. And I think this is the key thing, because more or less we all know which kind of lifestyle changes are healthy, but it's impossible to do everything right. So we have to compromise. And if each of us could identify which is the most important aspect for me, is it more important for me to sleep a little bit more, or to spend an hour in a gym, or maybe think more about the diet? And then I can focus on the important part and achieve maximal effects with the minimal effort.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess this relies a lot on integrating science with big data. Now, I know your research extends to quite large data sets. I think you've been doing work in over 200,000 individuals, right? So I guess that, what do you think are the biggest challenges now facing the field when really the proof comes in the large data sets and the blinded studies that can come through access to those data sets? I mean, do you feel that we're in the stage now where we're going to be moving from independent organizations doing their best with their respective technologies and the integration of large data sets, and we're maybe then moving into national health programs that could come off the back of this?
Yeah, so I partly agree with that. So yes, huge data sets are very important, but the small intervention studies can be equally important. So if you have a well-designed placebo-controlled trials, then we can see effects on a single person. So the problem is we did many of both of these type studies, large studies and small studies. And the key problem is that people are different. Whatever intervention you do, if you talk about glycans, some people will move in one direction, other people will move in the opposite direction. This is because glycans are making us diverse, they're making us different, they're making us able to adapt to the changes, and this is fine. But if we just try to understand what is good for everybody, we will never find that, because there is no drug or diet or physical activity which is good for everybody. Besides maybe walking. Walking is probably good for majority of people. So I think having tests translated to the clinics where individual physicians can work with individual patient, try something and see whether it helps or not, I think this is extremely valuable information. So we don't have to have hundreds of thousands of people. We can have a small clinic working carefully with their patients, knowing everything about their patients, and finding the optimal solution for a given patient. Because ultimately, this is what we all want to know. I want to know what will help me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested what will help you. If I would be a physician, then I would need to know the difference between two of us.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, I guess that was my experience of experiencing the GlycanAge test, and the follow through. It was definitely highly personalized. And I guess obviously you're the director of the National Center of Research and Excellence in Personalized Healthcare. Beyond the testing, and I guess moving into the kind of interventions, what you can do with that data. What are the emerging technologies that excite you most about how we're moving now into individualized medicine?
So I think something which is already in the clinics is the whole genome sequencing.
Mm-hmm.
We can know our genes easily. We still do not have many actionable points there. So more research is needed. But even when we learn everything about genes, genes define 10, 20% of longevity, 30% of complex diseases. So genetics will not solve everything. And I think there are two technologies which have proven to be useful in kind of personalization. One is epigenetic analysis. Epigenetic which is kind of modification of our genome based on our past experience going all the way through the prenatal life, and glycosylation, which are the effector molecules we change. And I think combination of these two type of data will really enable personalization. And then we will be able to probably use many of interventions which were even given up because they don't help everybody. For example, we did a large trial on metformin. And actually metformin helps very small percentage of healthy individuals, between 5 and 10%. But it does help 5 to 10% of patients. So there are people who respond to metformin. And if you identify the right patient, then metformin might be a wonder drug for these people, but not for the 90% of others. And I think there are more and more trials with the different longevity molecules, from rapamycin to exosomes, stem cells, and so on. And I think eventually, in a kind of, for the moment, high-end clinics, you will be able to find an intervention which really does magic for you.
Yeah, but reflecting back to the personalization rather than trying to do a one-size-fits-all strategy.
Yeah, I think that's the only way forward.
Right, interesting.
So we have to personalize. So the problem is this is still very expensive.
Yeah.
So it's available to the relatively small number of people. But things move in that way. Computers were very expensive at the beginning, and now we all have them. And the mobile phones were very expensive. Now we all have them. And I think eventually, once we learn which things work in some people, then we can make them cheaper, we can make testing cheaper, and we can make them available to more.
Understood. And I guess we very much see clinics, whether they're high end or mid range, really being a very important part of the evolution of the industry. But of course, the sharing of data is one of those things that the industry itself is starting to think about. There's a lot of openness in clinics to share anonymized data so that they can share best practice. And I guess that on that basis, we can start to migrate more towards a personalized population health strategy in the future.
Yes, I think this is something we definitely have to focus on, because now the majority of the planet is shrinking. The most countries are now losing population. Very few parts of the world are still expanding. So we'll have to prolong the healthy lifespan of people who are already here, because otherwise there will be nobody to work when they retire.
That's right. Yes, I talk a lot about the tax base erosion that we're experiencing.
To be able to survive as a society, we have to enable people to stay healthy for longer. Otherwise, the entire planet will have the same problem, which big part of Europe is having now.
Yeah.
More and more people are retiring. Europe depends on immigrants. But the moment when the whole planet becomes short of people is very close. So maybe robots will help, but still, I think the first priority has to be to make people live healthier for longer. And on a paper, this is already priority in all healthcare systems, but they don't really do much, because keeping people healthy for longer is not very profitable. Pharma business wants to have people sick for longer. And
I guess it's kind of, it is a very, very much a part of the debate, as we all understand in our industry, that it's starting to pick up traction now, whether it's political or even big pharma. I think that the concept of preventative medicine is really starting to take hold. We've seen the GLP-1s and so on. So, I guess, Gordan, I mentioned in my intro that you founded Genos, and obviously that led to your worldwide product, GlycanAge. Obviously, balancing your academic work with your commercial biotech entrepreneurship is something that you've achieved. What advice would you give to the next generation of scientists that are coming through? How to balance all of the commercial drivers that you need to have as an independent person when you're obviously in an educational process as well. I'd love to learn, or maybe get your guidance on some of our viewers that would be starting out on their path.
But science is fun. We all enjoy doing science, but it's even more rewarding when you see something that you have discovered being developed into the product which actually helps people. So I think many scientists should think a little bit more about how what they are doing is not only generating knowledge, but how this knowledge can be converted into innovation and then commercialized. And I think this should be one of the prime missions of universities. And in many regions of the world, it is. The best American universities, some of the universities in Asia, some of very few universities in Europe. Majority of European universities are kind of very conservative. They don't like business. They just want to be pure scientists. But personally, I feel that this is wrong. And I played on both sides, and I still play on both sides. So I work not full time, but 70% I work in the academia, 30% in the industry, and both things are rewarding. Teaching is great. Developing products and seeing people actually use them, it's also great. So I think it comes to personalized preference. For example, in my in GANAS, which is the research institute, I have some people which do only science. They just want to do research. And there are some people who are more interested in trying to translate something and commercialize. So I think different people have different motivations, different ideas, and I think we can find place for all of them.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's also a role of the universities to obviously they all have technology transfer offices and so on, but maybe just starting to galvanize and join that up a little bit more would be good for everybody in the sector.
But majority of universities see the technology transfer office as something which they should have, not that they really want to have it, and
Right.
not that they really invest into that and try hard to achieve something. So I think we as Europe are still a little bit kind of old retired lady. This is the way I see Europe. It's not something really pushing forward.
Yeah, well, we need that old retired lady not to be in retirement. We want her out there and productive, right? As
We need all the experience and knowledge and become highly productive.
Yeah.
Because Europe is a great place to be.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Gordon, so always a pleasure to speak with you. And of course, we're looking forward to the Global Longevity Summit, obviously coming up next month. So thanks for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for the invitation, and I hope we'll meet in Geneva.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Gordon.